What is the password?
IUC
Okay, so I will organize now the presentation of Keynes. As I said, Keynes' book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, that Keynes wanted it to be completely revolutionary in terms of breaking with neoclassical economics, suffers from the fact that Keynes only knew neoclassical economics. You see, it is as if I'm not satisfied with a language and I want to write a writer. A writer is not satisfied with the language, and the only language we know is the language the person is not satisfied with. So it's a bit of a complicated, right? You're not satisfied, say you are a writer in any language, you know, and then you don't feel that that language is good for your writing, right? Or whatever it is. And you want to move to another language, but you don't know any other language. And that's the issue in Keynes. And Keynes was always aware of that. He was aware. It isn't that he was not aware. He was aware that he was operating, that he was, the language that he had and the way of thinking that he had was neoclassical. But also he wanted to create a new one. That's where there is a lot of complication in Keynes. So he does not break with individualism to begin with. He has big difficulties in breaking with individualism. This is why, to understand Keynes better, okay, is useful to perhaps start with somebody who had nothing to do with Keynes. But they moved, they converged, okay? And this somebody that now is, it has become also very well known, but not appreciated enough. This is Kalecki. And the person who will follow me after we give you the next course on finance and macroeconomics, Jan Toporowski. Jan Toporowski just wrote last year, he published a book on, which is the first volume of, it's actually an analytical, intellectual, and theoretical biography of Kalecki. It combines very well the biography, which was published in London by Macmillan, Baldwin, yeah? And so this means that it will also give you a macro financial view, which is very close to that of Kalecki. I think Kalecki understood the issues that Keynes wanted to understand much better than Keynes. And the reason is very simple, that Kalecki never studied neoclassical economics. So Kalecki actually was not even an economist. He was an engineer in Poland, okay? He did not even finish engineering because the business of his family went bankrupt, was hit by the crisis, and therefore he had to start looking for a job, and he looked for a job and was employed by the Polish Institute of Statistics, or an Institute of Statistics in Poland. And the only thing that he really studied in economics, well, then he sort of picked up by himself, was Marx. But in particular, one part of Marx, and I have now to talk to you a bit about the part of Marx that became very important in Central Europe, that is in Germany, Poland, Russia, after Marx. And the issue was the Marxists that came after Marx. The issue was whether capitalism could grow, because in Marx there is a theory of crisis, okay, that we talked about, falling rate of profit, business cycles, all that, you know. So the Social Democrats in Germany and kind of Marxist type of Marxist, or people who were fascinated by Marx. They were not necessarily Marxists, but they were fascinated by Marx, mostly in Russia and so forth. They picked up on the theory of crisis of Marx. That's what they picked up. And the issue became whether the capitalist economy is bound to grow forever or is going to boom, collapse. Okay? It's called the breakdown controversy. And out of which came a number of quite significant contributions, analytically quite important, not so much for Marx, but for macroeconomics in general. But Kondratiev's theory of the business cycle came actually out of that in Russia. Kondratiev's theory is important in the sense that he tried to measure the business cycles and so forth. Then came, but the central issue was, does consumption matter? Does consumption matter or not? Okay? You follow me? Mm-hmm. And the guy who became Minister of Finance in that little sort of period of the People's Republic of Mikhail Gorbachev, developed a theory whereby consumption did not matter. And it was a very, very intelligent thing that he showed that the as long as, okay, so that the economy can tend to complete automation. He introduced automation into the system. So he asked the question, okay, if there is automation, there is no more consumption. Yeah. You follow? If there is automation, you don't need workers.
Yes.
If you don't need workers, you don't need wages, because everything is produced by, like in Matrix movie, you know? And you don't need, if you don't need wages, you don't need consumption. There is no consumption, because the bulk of the consumption comes from wages, right? You agree? Most of consumption comes from wages. It doesn't come from the rich. The rich consume a lot individually, personally. It looks as if they consume a lot. They do consume a lot. They buy stupid Rolex watches, and they buy Ferrari, Maserati, and they buy Rolls Royces. But how many Rolls Royces are produced every year? No more than 1,000, I think. You know, and how many Maserati? How many Ferrari? Few hundreds. Every year is few hundreds Ferraris. That is, the automobile industry cannot exist on the basis of Rolls Royce, Maserati, Ferrari. Cannot exist. The automobile industry can exist and can obtain profits only if it sells Toyota, General Motors, Volkswagen. This is the automobile industry, not Ferrari, Maserati. Ferrari, Maserati is to make profit out of automobiles, out of cars, you must have Volkswagen, Audi Group, and General Motors, and this sort of Hyundai, Toyota, and this sort of stuff. But these cars are sold to people who earn money through wages, by and large, right? They are sold to workers, to employees, to clerical staff, employees, to academics, and all. So people who earn wages. Therefore, if you automate all this stuff, is the famous statement by a real statement to Henry Ford once met with Walter Reuther. Walter Reuther was the head of the Automobile Workers Union in the United States in the 50s. Walter Reuther, very important unionist. And Henry Ford showed to Henry Ford III, it was not the first Henry Ford, so showed to Reuther a completely new plant in Ford, in Detroit. A completely new plant, which was virtually automated with robots. Okay? Automated. So cars were produced by automated procedures. And he said to Reuther, Bolt, look, try to organize, he was a unionist, so Reuther said, try to organize these people, this robot. Yeah? That's it, finished. You don't have your, whereas the workers, no, you cannot organize them for a strike because these are robots. And then Walter Reuther replied, yes, try to sell them cars. Okay? So, if you have no wages, no consumption. So the Turin was, can accumulation continue even without consumption? Okay? You follow? And the argument by Turin was yes, it can continue without consumption. Yeah? How? How? So he used Marx. Marx was the first to develop a two-sector model. Capital goods, we talked about it already, right? Capital goods and consumption goods. Yeah? So what he did, he took Marx and manipulated the model, manipulated this in such a way to show that every time you introduce automation into, so the consumption goods sector becomes more and more automated. So workers get kicked out, they get kicked out. As the consumption goods sector gets more automated, automatically more investment goes into the capital goods sector. You following?
Goes where, sorry?
As the consumption goods sector gets more automated, the capital, that is the machines which are produced by the machine, by the capital goods sector, they don't go to the consumption goods sector, they go back into the robotic sector, you follow, which is the capital goods sector. The capital goods sector produces automated machines which replace workers in both sectors, so consumption falls, but the slack is picked up by the investment in the capital goods sector. Eventually it becomes an economy which produces, there's only one worker. That's the example he gives. The worker pushes the button, activates the entire production process just by pushing the button, and then the economy just can continue to exist. There's no crisis in the system. That's a very smart stuff, very smart stuff. The issue is whether the economy actually operates that way, but the logic is absolutely correct. Provided there is investment is automatically redirected toward the automated sectors. So it's like Matrix movie, where the Matrix movie, you know, robots produce robots when they become always more important. You know? Less.
Nonsense.
Huh?
Nonsense.
But it's logically possible. Logically possible, and actually, the person that I mentioned, von Neumann, who worked at Princeton University, is the inventor of the self-reproducing machine. He invented it. Could come up with the... So, the opposite to Tugan-Baranovsky was Rosa Luxemburg. Rosa Luxemburg, she argued that the problem that Marx did not develop an appropriate theory of crisis because in Marx it is assumed that that the surplus, the profits, the surplus which is equivalent to savings, are always invested. Okay? So she argued that there is no reason why profits should always invest. And of course she was right, she was absolutely right. But they both, one was right at the logical level, Tugan-Baranovsky, that in fact, logically you can keep production becoming self-propelled without, even with one worker employed, okay? So provided you make sure that that there is this automatic shift in investment, this is the issue, that's the issue, that you have this automatic shift of investment into the robotic sector. Yeah, but that's exactly the issue. You know, how do you have that shift? You don't have that shift. That's it. Rosa Luxemburg, that's basically what she pointed out. She said, look, there is no reason why the surplus should be always automatically invested. That's what she pointed out. It took her a long book to point it out, but that's what she. Kalecki takes from that. Okay, he takes from that, and therefore he develops what later Keynes would develop on a different basis, but that's basically what he does. And he developed it between 1929 and 1933. Keynes was not yet Keynes. In that period he was in transition, but that was very clear for... So what Kalecki does is this. So he says, that is equation. Profits, what are profits? Profits, they are connected to spending. You cannot have profits if there is no expenditure first. You see? So profits are not the result of not consuming. Profits are the result of expenditure, but of a particular type of expenditure. So it defines profit as being equal to capitalist consumption by the capitalist, plus what he calls accumulation, which means investment. So he puts A, okay? And plus, he says, okay, that's what profits are. Profits come from the capacity of the capitalists to spend for their own consumption and to invest. Accumulation is investment, that's what it is into. And what is capitalist consumption? Capitalist consumption is a part of consumption. Capitalists have always enough income, rich enough to spend independently of the profits that they make, okay? So there is a part which is, let's say, autonomous, independent of the income, okay? And there is a part which is proportional to profits. I'm using actually his notation, lambda p. Well, lambda is less than 1, of course, Okay? Positive and less than 1.
Sorry, so B.
Huh?
B.
B is the autonomous part of capitalist expenditure on their own consumption. On the assumption that the capitalists have always enough money to pursue independently from the current income. Okay? And lambda is the percentage of profits consumed. So part of the consumption of the capitalist is linked to profit, and part is independent of profit. Okay? That's what it is. This is less than 1, because if it was 1, means no consumption out of profit. Okay? If lambda is 1, no consumption. You agree with that? If lambda, sorry. If lambda is 1, if lambda is 1 means that all profits are consumed. Sorry. So lambda has to be less than 1. And actually, we consider that the part of profits which are actually consumed is small. Okay? The profits, no matter how much money gets the general manager, because the capitalist class is made of general managers and stuff, the general manager of, say, Boeing corporations and so forth, can make 7, 8, 10, 15, $20 million a year, or like Marchionne Fiat makes 6, 7 million, I don't know whether it's dollar or euro, 7 million euros a year. But compared to the profits that would make Fiat Chrysler together, it's nothing. It's 6, 7 million is nothing. You see, it's very little. So no matter how big is the personal money that they make, is small relatively to the profits. You follow? That money, when you have a manager that makes that sort of money, that's not a salary anymore. That's really part of profits that go back to the managers as, so to speak, salaries, but they're not salaries. Yeah? So this lambda is actually very, very low, very close to 0 in the case of Kalecki, because the total profits of the firm, no matter how much money is the individual capitalists make, the total profits is by far bigger. Okay, once you have that, you substitute and you have that. Okay, so you substitute into CC, you start into consumption, you substitute this expression, okay? So CC is equal to this plus A accumulation. Okay, so just with ID. So this means that now I can solve this equation for profit. I can solve that, okay? I solve this equation for profit, do every step. And this means that, so this would be equal to 1 minus lambda, and this means that profits are equal to, okay, B plus A over 1 minus lambda. Or rather, saying it's the same thing, exactly the same thing, I only put in parentheses 1 over 1 minus lambda B plus A. So, let's focus on this. What does it mean? It means that profits are the result of expenditure. Of expenditure, but you see wages don't even appear here. Of expenditure, so there must be spending. And it has to come only in money terms. That's the only way you can spend. It's not instantaneous transaction. So, it is equal, profits are therefore equal to the capital spending on their own consumption plus the investment decision, how much they decide to invest. So the capitalists have this power that they can decide how much to invest, okay? Which presupposes the existence, and he actually says it in his writing, of a banking system that generates the credit necessary for capitalists to undertake the investment. And the credit is, the banking system exists exactly for that, in order to generate the credit for capitalists to start investing. And the size, the level of profit is determined by this, divided by 1 minus lambda. What is 1 minus lambda? If lambda is the proportion of profits consumed, 1 minus lambda is the proportion of profits saved. You follow? So 1 minus lambda is the propensity to save out of profits. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Yes.
Do you have some difficulties in seeing?
Can you repeat this part?
Huh?
Can you repeat this last part?
Yeah, well, I'll just rewrite the last part. Just a second. So I'll just rewrite this here because not everyone saw it. So B plus A1 minus lambda, which I have rewritten as 1 over 1 minus lambda B plus A. Okay? So this B plus A is capitalist expenditure. B is the capitalist expenditure of consumption. They buy Rolls Royce every other 2 years, whatever. And A is accumulation. In other words, it's investment. So capitalist firms decide how much to spend. That's what it means. And
The B is constant because it's auto consumption.
the B is held constant simply B.
So this function is more methods on A and 1 plus 1
Yeah.
produce.
B is held constant because it's a constant which is independent of income.
Yes.
It's independent of current income. So the capitalists are assumed to have enough money, enough wealth to spend independently of the profits that they make. Right?
Yes. So when the denominator
Yeah.
renta is close to 0, so we focus more on the investment and also
Yeah, the investment. That's it. Yeah. So, and 1 minus lambda, 1 minus lambda is the how much of the profits are saved.
Yes.
Okay. So we are saved. This means that we can call 1 minus lambda equal to, say, saving out of profits, the propensity, it's called, in economic terms, it's called propensity to save, right? The percentage of profit saved, this would be SP. So we have, again, 1 over SP multiplied by B plus A. Given, so this is given, we are not discussing this now, okay? So this is given. This means that every increase in profit depends upon how much the capitalists decide to spend. So spending, this is important, spending precedes profits. If you don't have spending, you don't have profits. You follow me? So spending precedes profit. So this is the basic. This is called, therefore, 1 over SP is the multiplier, because you can see that if SP is greater than 0 and less than 1, okay, less than 1 and greater than 0, and an increase in B plus A, if there is an increase in spending on investment or consumption, the increase in P will be multiplied out, right? You follow? So that's the profit multiplier. Correctly, did not call it multiplier. Keynes would call it later multiplier. But that's exactly it. It's a profit multiplier. It starts from the profit mechanism. I want to show that the profits depend, number one on how much capitalists spend. So it does not depend on how much the economy, because there's no wages consumption here. You don't see it. It does not depend upon how much consumption is withheld, how much consumption is foregone, right? Because the whole idea of the Wicksell-Ramsey story is that investment and savings depend upon decisions not to consume now, to consume less now and more in the future. Well, that doesn't depend on that. Actually, profits depend upon how much you decide to consume, to spend, not to consume, how much you decide to spend on consumption and investment by capitalists. How much capitalists decide to consume and to invest. That's what determines profit, okay? But that's in a different way, that's exactly what Keynes, although Keynes related to total income. Because if I have now, let's say, P over Y, total income, is equal to Q. That's a distribution of income between profit and the distribution of income in relation to profit. So wages would be wages over income would be 1 minus, okay? So at this, if I just focus on P over Y equal Q, okay, I can just move another sheet here, another sheet.
So what is K?
Huh?
What is K? So it's what is K? What is K?
Q is P over Y.
Okay.
Is
Y is the total income.
Y is total income. So P is the share of profits, the percentage of profits over total income. Okay? So if I divide, just to divide, just let me do again, just to divide. Q, that's Q, right? So, this means that I can write, okay, P is equal to QY is equal to 1 over SP B plus A. And this gives me the result that Y, total income given, so this is the distribution now, between is equal to 1 SP multiplied by Q B plus A. But this is what this is the transition that I make now. I mean, it's not in Kaletsky, but it is in Kaletsky in other essays. I make the transition from Kaletsky original formulation, which is this one, to Keynes. And I want to bring now the next sheet here, I will bring out Keynes. You see here, what is interesting is that if Q increases, what happens? If profits are higher, share of profits, the percentage, Q is the percentage of profits over national, it's the distribution between profits and national income, it's the distribution. How much of national income goes is taken by profits, okay? That's Q. If Q goes up, income goes down. Q goes up, income goes down. Do you follow me? Huh? But why is this happening? Because the investment decision and consumption decision, this is the investment accumulation, this consumption decision by capitalists, are independent of the distribution. They are determined by considerations, especially investment, especially A, is determined by consideration relatively to demand for products, for the products. Okay? Not on the basis of distribution. You follow? Therefore, if I keep this as constant, this is not very significant anyway. I kept this as constant. You can see that any increase in Q will reduce income. And any increase in the savings out of profit will also reduce income. If this goes up, if SP goes up and Q goes up, then any given expenditure by capitalists, income falls. And because behind incomes there is employment, okay, there is L behind that. If the share of profits over national income goes up, if there are more profits over national income goes up, there is no reason to assume, that's what Rosa Luxemburg pointed out, there is no reason to assume that more profits are going to be invested automatically. So you keep this given, you get it very clearly. If more of national income goes to profit, and even more savings, and even if the amount of profit saved increases, then these two together is deadly, because income will fall, and with the fall in income, employment will fall as well. Because we are in income, the importance of income is for employment in that respect. So this is produced by employment. Income is produced by employment. It's not produced by anything else except by employment. Yeah? You understand?
So
that is the principle of effective demand. Yeah.
Why is it that we don't assume that profit is automatically invested? What is the mechanism?
The mechanism I haven't spoken.
Oh. But you just said that's what Rosa. Oh, so you haven't explained why?
No. What Rosa Luxemburg pointed out is that there is no reason to assume that profits are automatically invested. So there is no reason. And she elaborated a long story concerning the fact that it's a big story, the Rosa Luxemburg story. It's a very big story. Okay, so the big story reduces to the fact that as capitalism develops, it needs more and more markets. Okay, but there is a limit to which it can find markets. So it needs non-capitalistic areas to conquer. That's the Rosa Luxemburg theory of imperialism. It has to go to Africa, it has to go to conquer the area, to create the markets, for itself, for its capacity to, as they say, to realize profits, to implement the profits. That's what she argues. Okay? So she argues that there is no reason why savings should be automatically invested. That's the important thing. And Kalecki takes it from there. That's exactly it, because Kalecki assumes that, to put it in formal terms, that investment decisions are exogenous, are external. Do you follow me? They are determined, Keynes would say they are determined by expectations. Yeah? They are determined by expectations concerning the state of demand, the future, and all that sort of stuff. Given, therefore, investment decision, especially therefore A in particular, B is not really important, A, given the decision to invest. So these things don't determine the decision to invest, accumulation. Accumulation is determined by the capacity, by capitalist investment decisions, which are connected to the way in which they view the state of demand, the future state of demand. So this is taken external, exogenous, okay? But if this is I can take it as given, then any change in either the saving out of profits and or the percentage of profits over national income, any increase will reduce output and employment. This is a completely counterintuitive, because all the previous economics, including classical, including Marx, more profits, more accumulation. Okay? You follow me? Including Ricardo Smith, Ricardo, etc., the greater the share of profits over national income, the greater the rate of capital accumulation in the economy and the greater the growth rate. Say, no. If this increases, there is no reason to connect this to that. Okay, if this increases, then output will fall. Okay? This is Kalecki. Now we go to Keynes. And it's exactly the same story. Only that he wrote it 6-7 years later. He did not, and the thing they did not connect that completely because Kalecki wrote in Polish. So it's not that Keynes was knowledgeable in Polish. And then he wrote in a little, not in a little, but in Warsaw was not little, but in relation to England, yes. Because in Cambridge they don't know anything beyond Oxford. Okay? And the most they can get is to Oxford. And so, they said that he did not know in Cambridge what was happening in the Statistical Institute in Warsaw. Okay, I can vouch. They had no idea. So this is also interesting. Keynes got there totally independently. It's not that he read Kalecki, oh, that's interesting. No, he did. In fact, when he first read Kalecki, because it was pointed out to him about the stuff by Kalecki, he didn't like it. But then he called Kalecki in Cambridge. Okay? He called it in Cambridge. That's all in Toporowski's book. So Keynes argues that for Kalecki was taken for granted, but he argues explicitly against the view that savings are the result of a decision to withdraw consumption. He argues very strongly against that view. Savings are not the result of a decision to withdraw consumption. Or to be more specific, they are not the decision to withdraw consumption in order to consume more in the future. Okay? Savings do not stem, do not arise from a desire to hold, to consume more in the future. Savings arise from, and here it's very close to certain aspects of Marx, it's very close, but it's Keynes. And it says, savings are the result of the desire to hold wealth in the abstract form. I will find it for you. Find it. I have to go into website. Go into website because Keynes is on the online. The Keynes general theory is online, and it's online on a site. The only ones who respect Keynes are the Marxists. So it's a Marxist site that has. Where is this? Okay, here it is. Let's see if I have Keynes general theory. There it is. Must be nice, not please, let's see. There it is, okay. Okay. And that's fantastic. I always quote it to students. Students like it, so you should like it too. Because I understood Keynes, but Kalecki I understand, because Kalecki writes like an engineer. He's an engineer, he's a small mathematical model, explains in few words, that's it, and bye-bye. Small mathematical model, calculus, simple engineering, calculus, and bye-bye. That's kind of. Whereas Keynes is blue, he speaks, but this is fantastic. So I tell you what I have understood of Keynes. There are certain things that are completely, including in this chapter, completely impenetrable to me, completely. That is, so, and this has happened to most people, should admit this. Most people say, oh, I understood Keynes, I explained to you. No, not true. You understood certain parts of Keynes, okay? Because he himself didn't understand himself. He says it, by the way, in 1937, the year after the general theory was published, he wrote an article in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, which is a journal of Harvard University. He wrote an article called The General Theory of Employment, right? And why? He says, look, no one has understood what I've said. But I also haven't understood myself very well. So I might as well try to explain things both to me and to you. He says this so why do people say I have understood? They have not understood. They understood part of it. I understood certain parts that struck me as extremely penetrating. So he says here, an act of individual savings, that's fantastic, means, so to speak, it's typical Cambridge College, you know, so to speak, not a decision not to have dinner today. That's a typical Cambridge person speaking, you know? You don't go to the college to dinner tonight. So this means what? This means an act of saving, right? If you don't consume whatever they give you in the college to eat, it means that in the college kitchen there will be some restaurant, there will be something left over. So that's like a saving, right? Saving. So, and therefore, an act of individual savings of the person that decides to save means it's like not having a cappuccino. Today I won't have a cappuccino, okay? That's it. I won't have a cappuccino, I save. But it does not necessitate, it does not necessitate a decision to have dinner or to buy a pair of boots a week hence. So when I decide not to have a cappuccino now, it does not mean that I do it because I want to have 2 cappuccinos tomorrow. It's a decision to save, not connected to an act of future consumption. Therefore, what happens if you don't have cappuccinos every day? Okay? You decided to pass over cappuccino that particular day. What happens? It depresses the business of preparing cappuccinos. It says it, cappuccino, it says, depresses the business of preparing today's dinner without stimulating the business of making ready for some future act of consumption. This is what happens. So we decide not to have cappuccino, say today, tomorrow. We decide not to have cappuccino. This means less coffee will be demanded, right, for cappuccino. Less milk will be demanded. So the people in the cafes, they will order less coffee, less milk, okay? The result is that the people the shops who sell the milk, they will order less milk from the milk, from the farm, etc. And so you can build the whole butterfly effect. You know what the butterfly effect is? Yeah. You can build the whole butterfly. By the end of the day, if nothing else happens, by the end, the economy output is next to zero. It falls to zero because everybody is cutting down, right? This is, by the way, why it's important to have what is called autonomous expenditure. The B in the equation is that expenditure which is not connected to income. It stops the whole thing from crashing down. Okay? So it says it is not, therefore, it is not a substitution of future consumption demand for present consumption. It's not a substitution of future for present. It is instead, I would say, it is a net diminution of such demand. That's what it is. Here is completely irrelevant, it's totally confusing. Forget it. Okay, that's completely typical case when it gets muddled. But this is extremely clear what he means by that. Now let's have another case in which we say, I say a cappuccino because I want to go to the Seychelles. So I said, okay, since I want to have future consumption, okay? Seychelles. And so day in, day out, I don't drink cappuccino because I have to put money aside to go to the Seychelles. But meanwhile, I go to the travel agent and I say, listen, I want to buy a Seychelles ticket for the Seychelles, okay? So the travel agent organizes the trip and books for it. Then I'm giving all the information concerning future consumption demand, okay? It's the same thing like, but you have to do it immediately. That is to say, you have to give a signal to the economy that you are not buying the cappuccino because you want more planes, you want to buy planes, or you buy the plane services, or the hotel service, or the snorkeling service in the Seychelles, etc., and all that sort of stuff. That you have to give, if you don't give, even if you have in your mind the idea that, okay, I save on the cappuccino because in 10 years I'll be going to the Seychelles, that doesn't do the trick, okay? It stays in your head. What has to happen is that you instantaneously communicate to the rest of the economy that you are going to go spend money in the Seychelles. Okay? This means that you need a credit system that allows you to put the order. You need credit, because if you wait until every cappuccino you save, until you pile up the money and then you take all the money to the travel agent and buy the ticket to the Seychelles, then it won't work either because you have not given the information. So you have to go to the bank, you borrow the money, you go to the travel agent, you pay with borrowed money, you pay for the Seychelles ticket, and meanwhile you save. You follow me? So you have generated future demand by borrowing and going to the travel agent to book for Seychelles and so forth. And meanwhile, you save. So you have offset. But you need that. If you don't have that, nothing happens. Even if you decide to save, to buy something in the future, but you keep everything, you don't tell anyone. You just tell it to yourself or your family, and the family saves, right, with you in order to buy the ticket to the Seychelles. You still are depressing the economy because you don't give the information that you are going to buy something in the future. Okay? Now, in fact, that's what he says here. If saving consisted not merely in abstaining from present consumption, but in placing simultaneously a specific order for future consumption, the effect might indeed be different. Okay? You follow? That's what I just said, then there is a blah blah and blah. Okay. And this is the great stuff here, it's here. Okay? This is a repeat of before. So the problem with savings, he hated savings. Keynes hated the notion, he hated the Protestant view of savings is good for you. That savings is good. He completely hated intensity. And he said, the trouble arises, therefore, because the act of saving implies not a substitution for present consumption of some specific additional consumption, okay, which requires blah blah blah, but blah blah, but a desire, it's savings, because an act of saving implies not all this, but it implies a desire to hold, a desire for wealth as such, for wealth, for abstract as such, that is, for a potentiality of consuming an unspecified article at an unspecified time. The absurd, though almost universal, like today, so that was written in 1936, 36 published, and today exactly the same, applies perfectly. The absurd, though almost universal idea that an act of individual savings is just as good for effective demand as an act of individual consumption has been fostered by the fallacy that an increase, I just jumped into it, that an increased desire to hold wealth, being much the same thing as an increased desire to hold investment, which is not the same thing, must, by increasing the demand for investment, provide the stimulus to their production. That's completely wrong. That's not what Keynes says. It's totally wrong. And then he says, it is of this fallacy that it is most difficult to disabuse, to get off people's mind. It comes from believing that the owner of wealth desires a capital asset as such, that the owner of wealth wants a machine, a capital asset, an asset as such, okay? Whereas what he really desires is the prospective yield, is how much that capital asset will generate as profit. Now, prospective yield wholly, entirely depends on the expectation of future effective demand. It does not depend on current thing. Prospective yield is something in the future. It depends on future effective demand. And then there is blah blah blah. This blah blah again. Okay. So this is crucial to understand. So in case savings do not represent, foregone consumption for future consumption. They do not represent it. Okay. Hence, you separate, then you get back to the Kalecki equation, you separate the propensity to save from investment. It's separate, and that's what he does. So in Keynes, you start from income is defined as consumption plus investment, okay? But investment is like the A in Halevi, it's the same thing, okay? Halevi is more sophisticated later on when it's in the corruption is specified. But that's the same. That's the A that before, so it's investment. Consumption is determined by is a proportion of income. Okay, so you can see that consumption can be only a proportion. It's a passive element in national income. Okay. So it is written in terms of C. Y and substitution leads to 1 minus C equal I. Okay? And 1 minus C is the propensity to save. So equal I. So notice that the propensity to save in the economy, this means that this is total savings. So for Keynes, savings and investment are always equal. They are always equal. They don't have to be brought together by the rate of interest. You see? And then the level of income is determined by 1 minus C times I, which is equal to, same thing, okay? 1 over S times I. So this is independent. This is exogenous indeterminate. So here we have, it's very clear here what we have. We have, if we were to write it again, we have, this is the dependent variable, the level of income, and underneath there is always the level of employment, okay? That's the dependent variable. This is the independent variable, okay? And these are the coefficients connecting the dependent to the independent variable. And so this is taken exogenous, it's exogenous, because it's determined by investment decisions which are connected to what Keynes calls, the future state of demand and so forth. And then those investment, those investment decisions, this investment will determine the level of income and the level of employment. And that's it. Savings come out to be always equal to investment. You don't need the rate of interest to bring savings and investment into equality. Because once you have the propensity to consume, in other words, the propensity to save, savings are always equal to investment, which means that savings always it means that investment always generates its own savings. Investment always creates its own savings. Yeah? In a global system or in a closed economy, for the theory, you must assume either a global system or a closed economy, because that's the theory. Then of course, situations change when we come to a single economy, say an open economy which trades and so forth. But the economic theory cannot take the specific cases into account, and which can come out are quite consistent with that, what we're doing now. So in terms of the general sense, investment, there is no, you cannot say there is not enough, investment is not enough because you don't have enough savings. The argument is the other way around. The level of savings is always determined by the level of investment, because see what happens here, okay? Look at this here. Okay, so I'll just rewrite to bring so here, which would be times I, okay, 1 over S. If the propensity to save increases, there is more savings in the economy. And because this is the independent variable, that's the independent variable, you can assume that there is an increase in the propensity to save and no change in investment, okay? What will happen is that savings will still be equal to investment, so the propensity to save goes up, investment stays the same, so with more savings, you will have less output equal to the same level of investment. That's what happens. Because if savings go up, then output must go down in order to adjust savings to the level of investment. Do you follow me? You understand? The consequence is that an increase in savings as such depresses the economy. But because the causation is not from savings to investment, like the neoclassics thought, and also the classics thought that the causation is not from savings to investment, but it is from investment to savings. Because the independent variable in case is defined as investment. Therefore, if investment increases, savings will increase to finance investment. So savings will flow into the banking system, which will then pay the loans necessary to undertake investment. That's how it occurs in the case. So, number one thing is that the rate of interest does not enter into the determination of the relationship between savings and investment. The relationship between savings and investment is governed by investment being the independent variable in the system. This is one. The second aspect, therefore, where does the interest rate come in? Okay. Well, Keynes tried to have a theory of the interest rate, and he has not succeeded, messing it up. But really messing it up in a big way. We'll see it also tomorrow. Messing it up big. But the rate of interest, this is the important in Keynes, is monetary. It's a monetary phenomenon. This is what has to be retained, because the specific theory of the rate of interest in Keynes is messy. It's called liquidity preference, it's a complicated, unclear sort of things. But which I will talk about, but what I want to point out is that in Keynes the rate of interest is purely monetary. It is the price of loans. Is how much the loans, the price of loans.
Compound interest.
The rate of interest is monetary. It's got nothing to do with the real economy. Okay? So that's what he reverts. It's nothing to do with the equilibrium between savings and investment. Sorry, nothing to do with the real economy. It's nothing to do with the relationship between saving and investment. The rate of interest is purely the price of loans. Okay? The rate of interest has got nothing to do with the rate of return, with the rate of profit. Yeah, you can have, assume that there is an economy which is completely only based on consumption. Okay, so fishermen, farmers, they're all based on consumption. Okay, so they only produce consumption. This means that all the output must be consumed in one way or another, eaten and so forth. Okay, so but you can assume that not every single household, not every household will consume all its income, so to speak. Right? But some household will save, and some household will consume more. So this means that the household who consume more will borrow through the banking system, obviously, will borrow from the households who consume less. So you have output of consumption, or output of tomatoes, or output of potatoes, output of eggs, meat, and fish, and so forth. This is defines the income of the households. It does not mean that all the households will eat all the tomatoes, all the potatoes, so it means that in income terms they will save. Right? Some households will save. Some household may actually consume more than the potatoes and the milk and the eggs and the so forth that they buy. You understand? So they will consume more of what their income can allow them to buy. So the household who save will lend money to the household who dissave. You understand? And there is a banking system in between. This money will be lent at a rate of interest. So you can have a rate of interest and no rate of profit. Because if you have only consumption, you have no rate of profit in the system. Okay? The rate of profit can exist only if there is capital. There is no capital, there is no rate of profit. Therefore, the household that dissave will have, however, to pay a rate of interest to the banking system, which gathers the savings from the household who save. And so you have a rate of interest, but no rate of profit. So this is a very simple case in which rate of profit and rate of interest are not connected. In neoclassical economics in particular, rate of interest and rate of return on capital, so marginal productivity of capital, are completely connected. They are equal. In fact, they must be equal. Yeah? But this arises from the fact that savings are seen as intertemporal consumption preference, and savings are seen as an additional supply of capital, which has to be met by a demand for capital. In case this doesn't happen, because capital savings and investment are the same thing, are not the same, they're not the same thing. They are always equal. They are equal through the mechanism of the multiplier of 1 over 1 minus c, 1 over small s, where investment is the independent variable. Okay? So we'll take it from there tomorrow. Right. Tomorrow you have me the whole day. It's a disaster. I asked for 2 hours. Yeah.
Good.
I can never finish in 24 hours. Okay. All right. I'll see you later.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Send me everything you got.
Because it's really very challenging to find.
If I really have words like this,
Invece ci sono state rovinate per sì, ma la mia fa tutta quella cassa qua sì vabbè
something to say about it. Yeah. And then we can talk before the class. We do it today.
You do this today? Yeah. Okay.
What's your email? This one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I was not going there, but I'm going to leave you with the key. Going home to
You will be there number 2? Yeah? Yes? Yeah, okay, because I'm gonna leave my stuff there and I will be there in half an hour.
But the market we went to yesterday did not have it.
I'm coming upstairs now. Okay, yeah.
There was only one.
Okay. Let's go.
I didn't go to the shop yesterday to look for
I'm going right now to New York.
yeah, and Alexander. Did you go to the Yeah.
You can see because it's lingote.
By the way, did you find
But South is just the edge or next to the edge of the mall. So you can see
Where is Italy or where?
just in front of Italy. Just, I mean, not in front, but like a few meters on the right. If you, I don't remember where the under.
Oh, it's very cheap.
Where the underground stop.
And you have good quality food, you know.
If you know
Vegetables,
Italy,
the-
the red place, the
low
red.
prices and
Okay, if
quality.
Italy is new. If you give your bag to Italy, there is the entrance of the mall. If you enter in the mall on the right, just on the right, there is this place.
More or less the
It's
same, but-
really big. And you can see
There are
some.
mobile phones there.
What?
I know it's number 4.
Yeah, they have
number 4.
mobile.
You can take it from Miyazaki, which is actually okay. If I'm not wrong, 4 passes. Oh, just there. Yeah, it's a table. Do you see the rails? Yeah, this is the 4. You take it from just the first row. The same before. You actually you notice in the balance because you're in a huge square and you can definitely see that this is the marketplace. It's a huge market with full of people and you cannot, I don't know, it'll be 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour.
I try to visit.
Yeah.
Actually, when it has a lot of cheaper products.
Yeah.
Jesus, I think.
Of course. It's the only thing is that it's quite far. I don't know if you want, if you have time, you know, you can go there, you can do a big shopping so that you have things for 1 week, I don't know, vegetables for 1 week and fruits for 1 week and some meat for low prices. But you have to discover a little bit more. It's very, very big, you know, and you have different parts. You have parts which you almost only Moroccan workers, and then you can, for me it's a good place to buy food. Then you have all the people from Italy, from the surroundings, and then you can find good vegetables there, and then you have the cover market for the meat and for the fish. And there actually, I don't know what to suggest, but I don't know, you can just go, take your time, you know, take your time and have a great, a big look around, because you need some time to get to know the place, you know, and be very careful because they pickpocket very much there, okay? So hide your money. It's not a dangerous place, but it's a huge market, you know. Just you know, you have to be careful.
I understand, thank you.
No problem.
Filmato tutto.
Yes?
No, tutto filmato questo. I'm fine, thank you. I'm a bit concerned about the economic theory lessons. But as maybe observed today, I didn't follow him very well. It depends on all the exam. We don't know how this is. So it's hard.
Especially this phone.
Yeah. When speaking, just theoretically,
Yeah.
you understand, but then
But maybe okay. Don't worry.
So, see you later. You go upstairs to study.
I'm going home.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
So see you later.
okay, see you.
Thank you.